Good day, it's Media Center of Ukraine, Odessa, and we start our working day. Today we have only one briefing, but extremely important. We'll speak about heating in Odessa. It's extremely important, especially as far as we face the danger of missile strikes and winter is coming. We hope everything will go fine for us. So here we have Anatoly Kozlov, Deputy Director of Urban Economy of Odessa City Council, and Hanna Pozdniakova, Director of Utility Company of Heat Supply of the City of Odessa. So please, the floor is yours. Tell us what we can expect in winter. Mr. Anatoly, please, the floor is yours. So in general, the situation which we had during the two lockdowns showed the possibilities of the whole housing system of the city. I can say that I'm proud enough that the city communal service has managed to restore its services. We've managed to provide all the settlements and houses of our residents with water. We provided heating to practically all the houses except for today's outages. Unfortunately, it's not our fault. But as for today, the city is heated. And we have developed certain experience how to act and how the housing services need to act in such situation. Ms. Hanna, thank you. Welcome everyone. I know that we have online streaming. Thank you for your attention to this issue. I would like to note that Odessa and Odessites receive heating all the time, except for the cases when we have energy outages. At present, the situation is more or less stable. In the city, we don't have blackouts. There are certain emergency outages, but we've learned how to manage with them. We hope that we'll continue doing like that. And all our services and energy facilities, they actually are operational all the time. And almost every day, our heating facilities suspend their operation for some time. Therefore, some houses which are connected to these facilities, it's less than 6% of residents. They sometimes are not heated when these heating facilities are not operation, but it's a short period of time. But all the large heating facilities are stable, operating stably. And this year has showed the possibilities of our facilities during this crisis situation. And many residents have learned and experienced the benefits of the central heating facilities, especially the multiple storage buildings which don't have gas, so they're dependable on the electricity. Because when the electricity is out, they don't have neither heating nor water. As far as that, when there is no electricity, the water pumps don't operate. And this is a problem for them, of course. As for our company, we work 24/7. And if our consumers have problems, they can contact our hotlines. And we try to react quite quickly to all the claims. And of course, if it doesn't refer to electricity or emergency situations. I would also like to add that, indeed, this situation is complicated. What I mean, it's not predictable. This is what I mean. We understand that every time when the system is switched off and then switched on again, the system is not stable. We need to understand that. Just imagine that you're switching on and switching off for your home appliances. You can understand that the system won't work properly, and this happens to our system as well. We understand that our defendants protect us, and therefore we try to protect our consumers as well. We were preparing for the new heating season, and today it's the 5th time we're starting the heating season due to certain circumstances, and I'm sure that we'll manage to finish this heating season. We have a number of questions to you, Ms. Hanna. A couple of years ago, we were discussing the possibility of generating electricity at Odesa power station. Is it still possible to discuss this issue? Let's differentiate these issues, the communal company and separately the power plant, Odesa power plant. So the Odesa power plant is the plant which is generating electricity. It's a separate company, and it's owned by Naftogaz Ukraine. As for our company, yes, I remember there were lots of discussions where we need to have this generation. And we are developing a plan for the next 10 years, how to generate energy. And this year, despite the hostilities against our country, we've approved this plan on the level of our city, municipal council, and we have a plan for such generation. When we've been developing this plan, we were not preparing for the war. No one could predict that, so we can expect a war. But anyway, this plan is topical for today, and we plan to develop different programs, which would include generation of heating, of energy to cover the needs of our company. And I hope that we'll be able to introduce the project till the next heating season. So do you mean the generation of energy by your company? Yes, indeed. Thank you. Mr. Anatoly, could you tell us, do you have any plans as to the multi-story buildings? What are your plans when there is no electricity and these buildings don't have water supply, heating supply, and many people are afraid from such buildings that their equipment won't work during winter? Do you have any plans for this situation? The main plan for such scenario is that we need to have electricity anyway, anyhow. If there is no electricity, we faced these situations already for 3 days in a row, at least, and we know such situations. It's extremely important to be rational in such situation, and it's important that TEC Odesa implements all its required actions as needed. For example, high-story buildings of 22 stories, 8 stories, they have certain requirements, and TEC provided certain certificates to such buildings, and constructors were implementing and were trying to comply with these standards. And when the when a building was became operational, so they have certain system for water piping, for heating. They have separate heating system, and we know that if such a building is switched off from electricity, all the residents of such building will be deprived of all these benefits. So in this situation, we need to have a very clear approach when developing the blackout schedules. We can't do the switch-offs, these blackouts for such buildings because it will be a disaster for residents of such buildings. And now, during the war, we know when there are air raid sirens, the people from the 22nd floor, they won't be able to go down to shelter. And in this regard, we had certain discussions with the Tech Odessa. We want to find consensus with them with regard to such types of buildings in the first place. And secondly, the mayor of Odessa has initiated a meeting between the Tech and our department, and he raised issues on blackouts to be very attentive to this, because the schedules for blackouts need to be coordinated with the city council. We know our priorities, and these schedules need to be reconciled. Secondly, we need to understand that presently 65% of revenue of the tech is formed by civilians, by residents, by their payments. And we can't treat residents badly. Yeah, we can't provide them only with electricity only for 2-3 hours. Because this electricity, this period of electricity is not needed for them. The people need electricity when they come home from work, for example, and we need to take this into account. Yes, we understand that these are the peak hours. We completely understand it, but we need to regulate it by means of electricity cuts during nighttime and sometimes during daytime. So these issues which we are considering, we haven't reached the consensus so far, but we have certain developments. Thank you. I would like to add that we would like to hear something from the tech. Of course, we would be glad to hear them here, not only here, but maybe in some other mass media. Now the floor is given to journalists. Good afternoon. I know, Mr. Anatoly, that you are an experienced specialist. My question is as follows. How many buildings which depend fully from electricity, roughly? And if we presume that all of them are connected to electricity, how this would affect other buildings? There are a lot of them, we understand, owned by communal services. We know that there are a lot of districts together with traffic lights which are totally switched off. Could you elaborate on that? I can't say precisely how much of that buildings we have, but I know the approach. Today, for example, we have certain periods of blackouts, and you know about them. Actually, I have 33 years of experience in this sector, but these blackouts are impressive even for me. Recently, we've had the meeting with the Ministry of Energy, and he underlined that it's extremely important to regulate the cutoffs according to the current legislation. And the legislation says that the cutoff of electricity is possible only for 2.5 hours, not more. As for the emergency or some other urgent outages, I don't even know where they are mentioned, because we have an instruction, and this is what it said. It says, I don't know why someone mentioned that we need to cut electricity for 4 hours, but I must ensure you that if we would cut off for 2.5 hours, we would be able to do even more than we need. But if we cut for 4 hours, this is what we have. Actually, this is the real situation, and people stay without light for days in a row, unfortunately. And this is the reaction of equipment and a serious situation. I hope that DTEC would hear us and would provide their feedback and feedback on how they see the solution for this problem. The DTEC has stated that they don't have schedules at all, but you mentioned the schedules. Do you have some internal information? Because as far as we know, that DTEC says that they don't have schedules. Yes, unfortunately, this is the situation, and now we have a chaotic situation with shutdowns. It creates a number of problems. And in order to streamline the situation, everyone needs to understand that currently everyone needs to understand that he won't have electricity from this time to this hour, yes, and thus a person can plan his activities. It would be a normal approach, and we would know that we need to provide water supply, heating supply to our consumers, and when we know that electricity will be cut for this specific period of time, it's more easy for us to act. But if DTEC says that it's impossible, I don't know how to approach the situation. What's your experience and how you can help other regions to help the situation? Maybe you learned something from Kherson region. Maybe you somehow show the other regions in Izum, for example, how to manage the situation. Thank you for your question. First of all, I would like to say that all the heating services companies, we are united and we coordinate our activities all over Ukraine from the very beginning of the war and, of course, before the war, but now we cooperate more closely with regard to different types of issues, including those which you mentioned, how to approach different situations, and with regard to other issues, we were helping Kharkiv, we were helping Mykolaiv. We did it in different ways. It wasn't only a technical support, because we understand that this war is personal very often, and it has influence on every individual. And as a human being, as a citizen of Ukraine, we all want to help each other. As to other international programs, so we are cooperating with them. For example, the programs from the Ministry of Infrastructure, from different American programs such as USAID, and many others. I won't enumerate them right now. So we really interact. We know what problems has each city, but more or less the situation with the heating supply is stable, and this is due to the armed forces of Ukraine, to the air defense system of Ukraine, and our defendants, and the support of our international partners. Thank you.
So from what I can see, there's an economic crisis in the formation. I've talked to restaurant owners, hair salon owners, who are barely surviving right now because they're only getting a few hours of electricity a day. One restaurant on Katarinska Square, for example, has reduced their working days from Thursday to Sunday because they just don't have enough electricity. Do you think it's time for the city or the oblast to provide subsidies to these small businesses so they can buy powerful generators? Because I'm told they cost about $10,000. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we understand the economic crisis is deepening, and it will continue to deepen because the war is going on and it is not finished at the moment. It all complicates our lives as the citizens of the country, but we understand that it's extremely difficult for the businesses. We try to operate without electricity. They need to purchase generators. They need to purchase fuel for the generation, and all of these things cause a complicated situation. As for some benefits to be provided to such businesses, such benefits do exist on the level of the state. These are subsidiaries which are provided by the state monthly. And these subsidiaries are given to citizens whose income is low. As to the entrepreneurs, this is the issue which is not in my position to solve. So as for me, I can't decide whom to provide these benefits. So this is the issue of the state level, of governmental levels. We don't have a specific concept for that. But for example, I know that tax exemptions for the importation of generators, certain benefits for the income tax. So these are economic issues, and we can't speak in details.
In other countries, consumers have the ability, in some other countries, consumers have the ability to choose their power provider. In Ukraine, my understanding is you only have DTEK. It's a very big monopoly. After the war is over, and it will be over, do you think it's time for more competition to be introduced in the power distribution system in Ukraine? Because we see what situation we're in right now with one company basically controlling the entire distribution. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I understand it, but in Ukraine, we have a competitive market in Ukraine, and DTEK then is only responsible for transmitting the energy. So they are not the monopolist in that. And as for the transmission of electricity, we have a lot of such transmitters in Ukraine, such companies. The problem is not in such company. The problem is that the terrorist state is destroying our infrastructure. They destroy these transmission stations, and this is the problem, and not the problem in the company. We have a question to Mr. Anatoly, and today actually we had a massive missile strike on Ukraine, and we have an emergency situation in electricity. Tell us please what's the situation in Odessa in this regard, and whether the companies which are responsible for the life support systems, how do they operate today? Today, the situation after the morning strike is quite complicated in the country, and the volumes of generated electricity for the whole population of Ukraine is lower, much lower. Even the energy which is produced now, it's impossible to transmit it due to the damage of the transmission systems countrywide. This is why we have the limitations all over Ukraine, including our city and the region. This is connected to the fact that we have a unified system. It's a single system which generates and transmits the energy. Therefore, because of the strikes, we are also affected by the limitations introduced. And at the moment, these limitations allow us to organize the operation of Infox Vodokanal, the water supply company, of the heating supply company of Odessa city, and it also allows us to implement the scheduled outages in certain districts so that we could cover all the needed life support systems in the city. But actually for today, all these cuts is a forced approach, a forced action. And I must say that DTEC showed itself as a professional company because when we had the first lockdown, from the organizational point of view, they were able to provide electricity to the critical infrastructure facilities, such as Infox Vodokanal and the Histins company. And during the lockdowns, we've introduced the approach during night, and this is a positive thing which I would like to highlight. This is briefly all from my side. Thank you. Take your seat when you finish your questions. Some clarification with regard to the previous question as to the work of electric transport. How much does it take, this transport? And yes, indeed, the electric transport of the city consumes enough electricity, and I will try to describe it to you in simple words. In professional language, I can say that this type of transport consumes 65 megawatt of power. So it's around 250, 230 houses, buildings, 9-story, 6-story buildings. So this is what the electric transport consumes from the point of electricity. This is why, unfortunately, today in the morning we were ready for operation of the electric transport, but due to the situation which has developed, we've been forced to limit the operation of electric transport and to replace it with automobile transportations. Small clarification from my side. If you know, maybe, is it planned to use big buses instead of trolley buses? And yes, indeed, there are such plans, and the city wants to use big buses. Next question, please, if you have, Michael.
в нынешних ситуациях.
In the current situation, in the energy sector, from the technical point of view, how the situation differs from the city, between the city and the region. If the electricity disappears in the city, how the situation develops in the region in small settlements. Could you clarify once again, what do you mean? What's the difference? What I mean is, what's the difference about requirements, how to supply all the residents between this big city and small towns? The system actually works in the same way everywhere. For example, it doesn't matter whether you have a small enterprise or a big city enterprise. First of all, the system works as follows. It generates energy and it transmits energy. But it differs only in the volumes of generated energy. The difference is between the size of the city. So if the city is small, it will consume less energy, and less energy will be generated for it. We're all in one boat, we understand this. And if a company is small, they will face similarly big challenges as we face, because they have also the resources challenges. They need to look for new solutions just similar to us. So we can't say that if a company is small, it's easier to overcome new challenges. No, it's not true. This is why I could say that the war has united all of us. All of us are looking for solutions, including the tech or heating company or other enterprise. All of us are working 24/7 to find solutions how not to stop operation, how to continue, because now the circumstances are unique. Because from the days of independence of Ukraine, we've never tested our electricity systems for endurance. We knew that our processes are stable, but today we have certain experiments, and we need now to be very creative, I would say now. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you that you've managed to come to us and found time to come to us and answer the questions of the journalists. After the briefing, I'm sure you'll be able to communicate with the others. And this is the last briefing for today, and we'll see you next week. Thank you again.